Hello, Year 7. It's been a while, 2 weeks by my reckoning, possibly even longer. Today, we're going on a new topic, and it's one of my favourites. Can you guess what it is by the quote on the head, on the wall behind my head? That one, not that one, this one. Because maybe you can, maybe you can't. Now, usually I spend a bit of time introducing this, but to be fair, I don't have the facility. So what I'm going to do instead is, well, I'm going to do a video, which you probably gathered by the fact you're watching it. But anyway, moving swiftly onwards whilst I do bad YouTuber things and not look at the screen. Here is an orange background, not terribly exciting, but it is the beginning of what we're about to talk about because pure history standards now, I've got some images. I want to know what these are. And if you're going to play the game properly, I'll take my face off. And then you will pause and have a go. So pause. I think that's long enough. Okay, you have paused now. Some of these are blindingly obvious, some of them are not, and they are deliberately old. You know that I don't do sport, football even less. But these are, of course, football fans. But I asked you individually what the images were, so let's go through them. On the top left, clearly, yeah, no, they're English fans. It's not that hard. On the top right, yep, that's French. Well done. It even says France on one of their T-shirts. Bottom left, that's Brazil. And, of course, bottom right is Cameroon. You see, some of you thought you were being clever there. So, I don't know what. There we go. Who are these people? We just explained that, but we didn't finish. We said football fans. Now, apart from their dress and their languages, is there any difference between these people? You look closely and, all right, there's some ethnic differences going on, but I think you'd be hard pushed to work out who these people were supporting if you didn't see their national flags. Which begs the question, what exactly separates them and how can we tell? And the point I'm trying to make here is it's really difficult to work out from physical images alone where people come from. Yeah, we did all that. They're in 2010, by the way. They're in the 2010 World Cup. I know that is horrendously out of date and now a decade old. So soon. So moving onwards. Here are some more people. Can you tell me who these people are by visuals alone? Can you tell by their dress and their state of being? Go on, have a go, pause. Okay, I think that's long enough. And of course, there is something that draws all these people together. Who are these people? Do I have the thing? I do have the thing flashing. Who are these people? Who are you? And of course, who are these people? We'll start with the top left, we always do. That's a Comanche. You can tell because the single feather on the headdress there and the fact that they've wrapped their braids. I'm sure you knew that. The next one is the Lakota in the middle. You can tell because the colors that are used and, of course, the geometric patterns on the headdress there. The headdress itself isn't a Lakota thing, but there you go. Also the bones. That's typical tribal dress for Lakota, and I'm sure you knew that. That one, of course, is a Puritan. We've met Puritans already in the Civil War. Oh, yeah. They're here too. That's an odd one. Bottom left, they're Iroquois, obviously. They're the ones that helped the English in the American Civil War, in case you're wondering. And, well, make of that what you will. At the bottom there, we've got an actual photograph of somebody. This is the Onondaga, and I'm sure you worked that out from the metal breastplate that they're wearing. It's made out of bronze. And the last one is blindingly obvious, of course. It's Quaquitl. So obviously you got that one. The point is, what draws these people together? Now, obviously, you've all been shouting it at the screen. They all live in North America. And it's kind of obvious that they come from different tribal backgrounds. But skin color isn't good enough, though obviously that plays a role here with the Puritan. So, how do I identify these tribes? What are the giveaways? Now, I mentioned a couple of things there, but there's plenty of other things you could refer to, and there are plenty of similarities between these images as well. It's actually quite difficult to differentiate between the different tribes unless you know a bit of context. And the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes obvious physical differences aren't the easiest way to go, because the corollary is, who gets to say who's in what tribe? And I would put it to you that it's not us as historians. So how do we do it? Well, one way of doing it is to look at maps. And you know that I like maps. At least if you don't, you know now. I like maps. I'm a big believer in maps. And these are two maps of North America as a continent. A bit of geography, I guess. On the left, you've got the various different biomes. I've gone from geography instantly into Minecraft. Minecraft? It's mine, not yours. And these are the different biomes of North America. You have, for example, the southeast. You've got the plateau and basin. You've got the Great Plains. You've got the northeast. You've got the subarctic, the actual Arctic, California, which is a biome all of its own, and you've got the northwest coast along here, which again is a different kind of biome. Each of these, or in the southwest, each of these has very different vegetation, climate, and animal life. You could divide those and say that different tribes, because they have to live differently in each of these areas, they are therefore different tribes in North America. Alternatively, you could take this map of languages. Now, the thing about these languages is these are language groups. So English, interestingly, is a member of two language groups. It's a member of Germanic languages, and it's a member of Romance languages, because it has words taken from both. Germanic things like hound, and Romance things like, I'm trying to think of a Romance word off the top of my head, and I'm finding it difficult. I'll get there. Fruit. There we go, managed it. So fruit is a Romance language. It's also got weird words that don't appear anywhere else, like dog. And that is a really weird English word. It doesn't seem to have an antecedent. But it's part of both those groups. So in that way, English is very like German, it's very like Dutch, it's very like Danish. Those are all Germanic languages. It's also very like Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. They are Romance languages. So if we took language groups, Germanic and Romance, that's the level we're talking about. Each of these coloured sections show a language group. So for example, the blue is Eskimo-Aleut, then you've got Nadene, then you've got Macro-Algonquian, then you've got Macro-Sihuan, then you've got Hokan, Hokan's down here, then you've got Penutian, then you've got Aztec-Tanoan, and then you've got Otto-Manguan, and then you've got others that we simply don't know, which is a lot, because Europeans weren't terribly good at recording these things. And the point being, they are all language groups. So what you could do is combine these two maps to try and work out tribes. That would make sense, right? A language group in a particular biome would be different to another language group in the same biome. And two language groups that are the same, but in different biomes, would be different. You could therefore quite easily superimpose one map on top of the other and make a series of tribes. And that would make sense. Trouble is, I'm not sure that would make the most sense because they're language groups. And whether or not those people who live in those areas would agree with your assessment. If you can't use languages, and you can't use environment, therefore, to identify native tribes, and I'm telling you that you can't, so don't worry about that. How can we use it as historians? How do we work it out? Well, we're left with what they said. We're left with people from the time identifying themselves. And you need to know a little bit about this. So let's start here. What is this an image of? Absolutely. It's a woven piece of something. It's a weave. There is warp and weft. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not sure whether the uppy downy bits are the warp and the sidey bits are weft, or whether it's the other way around. I don't know. There is warp and there is weft. One goes one way and the other goes the other way, and they go in and out of one another. And the Native Americans believed that this gave them strength. The warp and the weft were powerful. If you want to have an example of this, then take some strips of paper, get an A4 sheet of paper and cut it into strips. We wouldn't do this in a lesson, but you're more than welcome to do this in your own homes. Then try sitting on those strips of paper. They will snap. They will not take your weight. Sorry, spoiler alert. If you weave them, however, then they will likely take your weight and you'll be able to sit on them. And that essentially is what the Native Americans said of warp and weft. If you want to identify who you are as a Native American, you need at least two strands. You need a warp and a weft. You need two things. Now, Native Americans at the time, how did they identify themselves? Through the warp and the weft. One of them, and I forget which, is lineage, and the other one is your tribe or clan. So your lineage comes through your background, where you're from. Primarily, and this is interesting, through the female parent. Your tribe or clan comes from your community, primarily through the male parent. And so right from the off, Native Americans recognize your heritage from both male and female parents. And that is fascinating. Speaking as a European, where we tend to do it mainly from the male background, and we tend to ignore the female background almost entirely. That's your surname, in case you're wondering. If you've got a hyphenated name, Brill, you're bucking the trend. And if you don't, you're not. It's not your fault. You didn't choose your name. And so what we're going to do is use that information to have a go at one of my worksheets. Now you know how my worksheets work. There's a blue box, which is designed to give you the information, and a yellow box where the tasks live. Each of the tasks get harder as time goes on, and the first task tends to use the blue box regardless of whether or not it starts there. So it's got a name on this. How do we know which tribe it is? What tribe it is. It says, aim, appreciate the difficulties in categorizing Native Americans. It's hard to put them in a box. And so what we have here is a way of doing it. Now, the task one, is obviously based on that task that I just talked you through, those two maps. Were we doing it in a classroom? I'd probably got you to do that question at that point, but it's okay. You're doing it at home, so take your time. How would you work out which tribe was which? So obviously you know the answer is, oh, you let them identify themselves. But I'm asking you to work through and explain how you'd use the maps alone to do it. And be as complicated as you like. Try and explain your answer. Remember, this meant that as a connective doesn't necessarily mean that what follows is an explanation, but it does make it more likely. Words like because are also good, but less helpful. I like the word thus. It's Latin. It's only 4 letters. It means in this way, T-H-U-S. But this meant that is more often preferred by students. I don't know why, but presumably because it's a nice, neat threesome. And things in threes tend to work reasonably well when it comes to memory. So that's that. Question 2 says, why might the ideas you had in question 1 not work very well? Source 3 tries to explain the problems with language groups. And it says, linguists believe that over 200 different languages were spoken in North America before the first Europeans arrived. These languages can be divided into groups of languages with close links. Speakers of 2 languages within the same group will be speaking languages as different as French is from Spanish or Italian. So they might not understand one another, and the Europeans probably can't tell the difference, is basically what I'm driving at. Why would your plan for superimposing one map on top of the other, and that's a good plan, not work? I hope that explains it. It then says, using source 4, how did the natives identify themselves? Now that is a bit more complex, but thankfully this is a modern native interviewed in 2006 in Michigan. I know, I interviewed the modern native, and this is how they explained their system to work. The blue box tries to explain the background. It might be that using what you see in source 4, you draw a diagram with boxes and arrows to show how it works, and that is perfectly acceptable. In fact, I encourage it rather than trying to write it out in prose. Now, by this point, this PowerPoint has had the worksheet on the screen for a very long time. So, whoops, I'll get rid of that. That's the task for today, to work through the worksheet. I will come with another lesson on Friday. I'll probably post it on, I'll post it on Friday. Keep it on the timetabled lessons. I'll do my best. And we're on to Native Americans. This should take us through the remaining 4 weeks, and hopefully will be interesting to you. I've already got, I think from most of you now, your assessment data on the topic before Civil War. This is the final topic that we'll have an assessment on. It's the last in the year. It doesn't change anything. It's just handy to know for you transitioning into year 8. So it's just another way of keeping track of things. Do not worry. Reports are coming. I forget when they're due. And we will put in a final end of year grade there. For the vast majority of you, that's not a problem whatsoever. 1 or 2 of you haven't yet hit your end of year target, but you're going to. And some of you have already hit it and smashed it and have had to change it. So you're making more work for me, is what I'm saying. I hope that this has been useful and helpful to you. I hope that you're able to do the tasks. I look forward to your submissions, and I'll do my best to feed back to you as quickly as I can. Other than that, have a lovely day, Year 7. The weather this week is looking significantly better than last. Thank you very much for your guides to Lincoln. And I never really know how to finish these videos. So I guess it's just a case of